Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. This video is going to be probably one of my favorites because we're talking about all of my 5-star reads ever since I started my reading journey. I don't exactly know how many I have here. I think I have like a little bit under 20. Obviously, I rated these books very highly for a reason, so of course I'm going to be very excited to talk about them and share my opinions and thoughts and why I love it so much. If you guys are looking for book recs, any kind of inspiration on what to read next, what to read in the new year, these are definitely my top recommendations. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about all of my 5-star reads. Okay, so these are kind of in no particular order. I definitely am going to be talking about like my very top 5 stars, like almost 6-star reads at like more towards the second half of the video. They're still not in any particular order. I'm going to be starting off with some like lower 5-star rated, but obviously I rated them 5 stars, so they're still very good. We are starting off with The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. You guys, I read this at the beginning of this year and I was so eager to read it because obviously it's very highly rated, highly raved about. Kristin Hannah is such a popular author when it comes to like historical fiction. This is my first read from her and this book is honestly very long, but it's so worth reading. And I feel like once you're in the story, you just like fly through it because it's just that good and you can't put it down. This is a story that takes place during World War II. It's always so hard for me to say. I don't know why, but we are seeing the perspective from the woman's side. So obviously the men are out fighting, they're in the war, but this is kind of what it looks like for the women who are at home, who are still trying to live and provide for their family when times are really hard and really tough. It's really sad. The main characters in this are still very young, and so they're trying to navigate how to like survive while also growing up and just like not knowing a lot. This was just like heartbreaking, but also so eye-opening to see what people really went through during this time when they're literally just trying to survive every day and you just don't know what the day is going to bring. This takes place in France, so the Germans were invading and you just never know what the day is going to bring. You never know if you're still going to be alive to see the next morning. Really good story. Highly recommend this one. Obviously 5 stars. This next one is honestly a newer 5-star. I actually read this like in April, I think, but the more I think about it, the more highly I rate it, and I honestly think this is a 5 stars. So that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. She's one of my favorite authors. I just love her writing. I love everything about her, honestly, especially her like more newer releases. This is the story of Alice. She is a writer and she's going up with Hayden. They're both like competing for the ability to write Margaret's story, which Margaret is like a really well-known, very famous woman in pop culture in Hollywood. She's like, I want to tell my story. I need to find an author, someone who's gonna be able to write my story well and, you know, truly depict like what I went through. And so these two people go to her house, they meet up with her, like they have like opposite days that they meet up with her and they collect all this information from her, and at the end she's gonna decide who gets to write the story based on what they can come up with. We're seeing past tense of Margaret's life growing up and what her family dynamic was like, and then we are also seeing present tense, obviously, taking place where she's like figuring out who she wants to write her story. And we also have a romance in here between the two writers. So that is another plot point to this. So there's kind of a lot of stuff going on, but I really like how Emily Henry wrote this, and I know there's a lot of controversy about this and people just not really liking it, saying it's very different from what she normally writes. And honestly, I love that because Emily Henry is obviously very well known for her romances and that's like really all that she writes. So seeing this have a little bit of a twist to it, like it still has that romance, but it's just twisted a little bit, really reminds me of Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just really enjoyed this and I highly recommend this one. Bear with me on this one, guys, because I read this like over a year ago, so I don't necessarily remember everything that happens in this specific book. This is the second book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. Yeah, I rated this 5 stars because I think we were seeing a lot more buildup of the romance. I just loved that so much. I don't know if I would ever go back and reread this series. I really enjoyed it, but I think this book specifically was like my favorite. The last 2 books, honestly, I could care less about. They were not my favorite, like A Court of Frost and Starlight and then A Court of Silver Flames. The first 3 books were definitely really good, but this one was for sure my favorite. Obviously, I can't really tell you much, but it is a fantasy series. There is a romance involved. There's lots of crazy otherworldly things that go on. I don't really know how to describe it much more than that because it's really confusing and very, very complex, but it's been so long since I actually read this, so bear with me on that. Next up, I have the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, Flawless by Elsie Silver. So this is a 5-book series. They're all like interconnected standalones. I definitely would say you have to read them in order to understand all of them, but either way, this is the first book. This involves Rhett and Summer, and Rhett is a bull rider, and Summer, she's hired to be his assistant. He gets in trouble a lot. He doesn't know how to control himself, and Summer kind of comes on and really puts him on the ground. She just brings him back to earth and is like, okay, you need to get your crap together if you're going to be a professional bull rider and, you know, be in front of all the public and be in front of a lot of people. Like, you need to get your crap together, basically. Romance forms from there. This is a romance series. That is how this one goes. I really, really enjoyed it, honestly. I will say I read this probably like 2 years ago, so at this point, I definitely think my reading taste has changed a lot. I mean, I know it has. There's so much spice in this book in this series. I think this one was definitely a little bit less than the other books in the series, but overall, Elsie Silver always has a lot of spice. That's probably my only deterrent towards this book now, is that, but overall I still really enjoyed the romance and the plot line and everything else that was going on. I tabbed like towards the end. I didn't even tab the whole book. This was like the first book I ever tabbed. That's so funny. Moving on, I have a Christian fiction. So this is called To Dwell Among Cedars by Connellan Cosset. This is a book that I read in my book club when I had like a Christian book club. This was the second book that was chosen, and I was very interested but also kind of skeptical, just because, I mean, if you look at the cover, it looks very old. It just doesn't look like something that I would typically like gravitate towards. Honestly, I really enjoyed this book. Obviously, it's in this video, so I must have really enjoyed it. This takes place in the Old Testament. I think the part of the Old Testament that it's a part of is Leviticus, which, if you read the Bible, Leviticus is very heavy and very dense. I just recently read that, actually, when I was reading this. It was so funny to like be reading this at the same time that I was reading that in the Bible, because so many things like overlapped and connected. Obviously, this is a Christian fiction. It's a story, so it definitely, like, there's parts that are in the Bible that take place in this, but it's like expanded to be able to tell a story. A lot of things that happen in this were very hard-hitting to me, of like things that I was going through in my personal life, and just how the main character was like developing in her faith and how she was brought to know God, and also like her brother and her brother's struggles with believing in God. It really touches on like the Ark of the Covenant and the Canaanites and the Philistines and like how all of that played out. So it was really, really good, and I highly recommend this book. I actually asked for the second book. It's like a duology. I asked for the second book for Christmas. I'm really excited to see the brother's story. I don't remember his name. Next up, we have literally the very first, maybe the second book that I ever read when I started my reading journey like 3 years ago. Obviously, I read a little bit like throughout middle school and, you know, whatever, but I was not a big reader up until like COVID hit, and I got COVID and I was like, I have nothing else to do with my time. So I read It Ends With Us first, and then this was the second book. This was around the time that Colleen Hoover was extremely popular. This is more of like a paranormal. Colleen Hoover is mainly a romance storyteller, and this is kind of like a paranormal romance, so it was a little bit of a spin on what she normally does. But at the time, I didn't really know that because I'd only read one of her books and I was just starting to get into like all the book stuff. This is a story of Layla and Leeds, and they are in a relationship. They start a relationship, and a lot of like very weird things start to happen between their relationship and in the house that they're in. Yeah, this was really, really interesting, and I think I rated it 5 stars because I like didn't know anything else at the time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this story is crazy, and it had that like shock factor. So I'm really interested to see, if I were to reread this, if I still think that it's 5 stars, because it's been like 3 years since I originally read it. So I think it'd be fun to do like a rereading 5-star books video to see if I still think that they're 5 stars. So maybe I'll end up doing that like in the new year, but this was really good at the time. I don't know, it's hard to say if I still think that, but definitely very interesting, different than a lot of books that I've read before. Now we have another Emily Henry book. So this is People We Meet on Vacation, and I feel like this is going to be a shock to a lot of people because so many people actually hate this book and think it's like one of her worst books. And to be quite honest, I loved this when I read this. This is the story of Alex and Poppy. They used to be really, really close best friends and go on like a lot of vacations together. and they decide to go on some trip together again after they haven't talked for a really long time. They decide to go on this vacation again, kind of like relive the life they used to have together. Things go really well, and I just really enjoyed this. Like I said, I love Emily Henry's writing, and I think she did a really great job with this story. And I was very pleasantly surprised just because of all the bad things I've heard. I had heard going into this story. So another video I would really like to do is rereading Emily Henry's books, because I read them like so spaced out and like over the past 3 years. I think it'd be really cool to see all my thoughts and like actually rank them all. The next two I have are like YA books. Again, I read them a long time ago. That's the thing about these videos, is like I don't know if all of them are still 5 stars, but I know that I rated them 5 stars at the time. And honestly, I don't think it matters if I still think that they are or not. It's like how I was feeling in the moment and like where I was at mentally. If I was able to connect to it a lot, like I feel like that's a good way to look at it, is like it doesn't matter if I still think it's a 5 star. I definitely thought it was a 5 star in the moment, and it gave me that feeling. Anyways, we have If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. I've actually read this book twice, and both times I bawled my eyes out. This tells the story of Autumn and Finn. They are both in high school. We have a romance that sparks from here, and it's just a really heartfelt, heartwarming story. And like the writing is not that great. It's a YA book, so you can only expect so much from it, and the characters are kind of immature, but I still really enjoy the love they have for each other. It's heartbreaking. So just, if you're gonna read this, go in knowing you're probably going to get your heart broken. This next one I would love to actually read very soon. This is Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. This is another YA book. This is the story of Samantha. She has like a very severe OCD, and she really struggles, but she ends up like getting to be a part of this group that not many people know about at her school. She just like finally feels like she fits in somewhere. Then there's a boy involved that comes into the story, and of course it's a romance, so you know. But I just really like the way that this was told. And again, like just, I feel like both of these books really touch my heart, because it's like that first love that like you don't even know heartbreak at this point, and you just like give it your all and don't care what anyone says. You don't care like anything else outside of the romance. Like that is all that you care about, is that love that you have for each other, or like what you know love to be, the most that you know love to be. Yeah, this was just a really sweet story, and I want to reread this so badly very soon. Now we are getting into the books that are like top the 5 stars. I love them so much, and I could literally talk about them for hours. Starting off, this is a book that I love, but I would literally never recommend it to anyone because it is so insanely heartbreaking. That is A Little Life. You guys, I read this like last summer, I think, not like this past summer, but the summer before. And you guys, if you have never heard of this tells the story of Jude. He is a young man, and it starts off by telling like his time in college and like with his friends, and then it pretty much takes you throughout his whole life. And trigger warning, please look up trigger warnings if you are interested in reading this. If you struggle with anything mentally, I highly recommend looking at the trigger warnings, or honestly just not reading this at all, because it is so mentally exhausting and draining and awful. It will make things 10 times worse. Honestly, you guys, when I read this, I should not have read it. I was already struggling mentally, and I read this, and my mental health literally plummeted so much, just because I was able to like really relate to the main character and what he was going through. Obviously not to the fullest extent, like a lot of the abuse that he experienced, but like mentally I was able to relate to a lot, and it just made things so much worse. So anyways, this man has been through a lot in his life, a lot of child abuse, a lot of like sexual abuse and mental abuse, and so many awful things. But this, like, the reason that this book is so good is because the author does such a great job of like truly depicting what it is like to experience mental health and what it's like to go through this and to feel like you don't belong anywhere in the world, and the trauma that can come from people abusing you when you are young and throughout your life. And I have chills talking about this. It is so insanely heartbreaking, you guys. Look at the tabs. Like, that is insane. I'll probably never reread this, or like I said, never recommend it to anyone, but it was so good, and I understand why it's so raved about. It is really good. Obviously a 5-star, but don't read it. Read at your own discretion. The next book I have is like one of my all-time favorite books ever, besides another one that's in this pile, but this one is definitely one of my top ones. This one I've also gone through and tabbed. I've read it twice, and I just love this book so much. This is another Emily Henry book, of course. This tells the story of Harriet and Win. They are in a relationship and they recently are separated, but none of their friends know. So Harriet goes off to this little adventure that she does with her friends every single year, this little like vacation, and she decides she's not going to tell anyone what has happened between her and her boyfriend. I can't remember if they're engaged at this point, but she's like, I'm just going to keep it hush hush. It's like a couples thing, so typically I think Win has gone in the past, but he obviously is not going, at least she doesn't think so. And it just takes you throughout their time spent with friends. I loved this. It really, I think when I first originally read this, I was really, like, it just hit home so much because I was also going through a breakup. So like seeing the heartbreak that Harriet was going through, having to go back to normal life and like put on this face that like everything is okay. I just related a lot to the main character in that, and also the things that she went through with her family was very relatable, and it just really hit home for me. So this one's like 6 stars. I will always recommend this. I love it so much. This next one is actually a pretty recent read for me. So this is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I had this on my shelf for a really long time, and I never like really gravitated towards it until it was on my TBR for the month, and I was like, okay, I have to finally read this. So this is a romance. It's between Emma, and she was like married to this guy, and he ended up getting in a helicopter crash and doesn't, like, nobody knows where he's at. Emma decides to reconcile with Sam, who she knew when she was younger. They end up sparking up a romance, but then Jesse ends up coming back. So she kind of has to decide what she wants to do with her life, where she wants to go, like in her relationship, and who she's going to choose. Just thinking about this gives me chills. I knew that I loved Taylor Jenkins Reid, but reading this really like re-sparked that love for her again. And I actually have Atmosphere by her on my TBR for the end of the year, so it's over there. But I am really excited to read that book from hers just because I really enjoyed this one. This was like an immediate 5-star. I didn't even have to think about it. It was just like, yep, this is 5 stars. It gave me the 5-star feelings. I loved the romance. I loved like how it ended and like the way that she chose the person that she wanted to be with. By the way, that's all in the back here, so it's not a spoiler. The next one is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. This was the first book that I ever read by her. It was like a perfect summer romance. I read it at the end of the summer. It was like a perfect time to read it. But this tells a story of Allie. She's recently divorced. Her husband left her, and she also has kids. She ends up meeting Ethan at the dog park, and obviously from there they spark up a romance. I loved Annabelle Monaghan's writing. I wish I would have went through and tabbed this because there was just so many good quotes, and I think I just really loved the depth that the author gave to this story, and the characters and the character development that we saw was really good, especially like the maturity of the kids, her kids. Like, it just, you could tell that she really raised them up right. It was just crazy, like the amount of intelligence that they had with being so young. Ethan just really came in and was like a really good father figure for the kid. This was obviously 5 stars. Highly recommend. I love her writing so much. I can't remember what I rated Nora Goes Off Script. I think that one was like a 3.5. It was like a good romance, but this one was definitely top over that. Okay, the next 2 I have are kind of like related, so we're just going to talk about them together. That is Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home, and then Magnolia Parks, Into the Dark. So these are both part of the Magnolia Parks series. This is my all-time favorite book ever. This is like top of the top. Out of this whole entire video, this one is my favorite, obviously, if you couldn't tell by the tab. If you don't know, it's a romance series. Very messy, very drama-filled. It's a 5-book series so far. I'm hoping that the next one will come out soon, but this tells the story of Magnolia and BJ. They have been together for so long, and it just takes you throughout the relationship, the messiness of it, the breakups, the getting back together. This is the most recent release of hers. It's also the last book in their story. So getting to see the character development from book 1 to this. Sorry guys, my mic went out and I had to charge it for a second, so I don't really know where the camera was at, or we're probably all wonky at this point, but that's okay. We're almost done. So I think I was definitely talking about these 2. Basically, I love to see the character development that we did throughout the 2 stories between both BJ and Magnolia, them actually like realizing where they are going wrong in the relationship and going to therapy. And there's also a huge subplot of grief in this, so I would say that's a trigger warning before going into this, but just seeing the way that the characters that were going through this like worked through that and was able to move on and like move forward from that, but also like how it was affecting their life still. was really sad, but also, again, character development. And we got to see a lot of like why the characters were struggling with the things that they were, like addictions and cheating and all that kind of stuff. I just loved the deep dive into like the background and like childhood and all of that, because I just love that stuff. I think it really, really helps you to like get closer to the characters and truly understand them for who they are. I'm just like a big lover of that kind of thing when it comes to writing, and the author just not being scared to take that direction in a story. It was also just very relatable, honestly. Like the things that the main characters were going through was extremely relatable, and I just felt like I was really able to connect to, especially Magnolia in the story. Love this, especially Into the Dark. I cannot believe their story is over with. It's so sad, but I'm really excited to see how Daisy's story continues and like all of those characters too. Okay, I have 2 more books and they're both kind of in the same genre, so we have fantasy here. So the first one is Powerful by Lauren Roberts. So this is the novella after Powerless, which is super popular TikTok series. If you're not living under a rock, you probably know what this is. This is the novella after this one. So this is the first book, but this tells the story of Adina, which is Peyton's best friend. So Peyton is the main character in the first one. Adina definitely plays a part in Powerless, but we were able to really see more of her story in this and her love interest, and it's extremely sad. With how short it was, I was really surprised with how well I was able to connect and feel for Adina and Mac, which is the love interest. I was just really impressed by Lauren Roberts to be able to make me connect so well to characters I didn't even know for that long. This made me cry. I was sobbing. It was so sad, but so good. And I loved all the books in the Powerless series. I would say they're like 4 to 4.5 stars. They just did not give me the same feeling that I felt when I read Powerful. Okay guys, the last and final book that is in this video, my very last 5-star, that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. So this was her most recent release in this series. This is part of the Fourth Wing series, if you don't know. It is a fantasy series. It talks about dragons and this crazy world that they're in with like scribes and writers, and there's just a lot to the story. It's a lot to explain. If you're interested in the premise, go look it up because it's hard for me to explain. It's kind of like A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's just a lot. The main character, Violet, she is a writer, so she has a dragon that she is writing and that she gets partnered to. You just get to see a lot more of the story develop and like the goal that they're trying to reach. In this one, I could not put it down. I felt like the author just did such a good job of like keeping you engaged, and there was just never a dull moment, honestly. I will say, like, a lot of people don't like that there's so many characters and just getting like pulled to so many different side plots, but honestly I really enjoy that, like getting to see glimpses of everyone. And yeah, I do have to like recap what happened in the books previously before I ever start another one, because it is a lot and it is very confusing, but I just love the world. I love all of the characters, honestly. I don't love the way that this ended. It definitely left on a cliffhanger, but that just makes me so much more excited to get into the next one and to start it. Very long, it's a very big time commitment, but honestly, it's worth it, and I just cannot recommend the series enough. It truly is so good in my opinion. Those are all of my 5-star reads. Wow, that is so crazy and exciting, and I love talking about my favorite books. It's so fun. I hope that you guys enjoyed and were able to get some book recommendations out of here. If you guys have read any of these books, definitely let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Even if you disagree with me, let me know why you didn't love it so much, and if you did agree with me, I'd love to know that too. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!